Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSI DFS. I'm McKinley412, and we're looking at this early slate for Thursday on this video. If you want notes for the main slate, come back later. They'll be down in the description below, kind of giving out some of our favorite pitchers, bats, etc. You know the deal by now. But for now, just this video is going to be focusing on the main slate, or the early slate, and no other concerns that we have to be paying attention to, but it is pretty ugly in terms of the pitching side. So you kind of have your two best pitchers going up against the two best offenses. You also have arguably your two worst pitchers going up against the two worst offenses. So it always makes for an intriguing slate on how ownership breaks out with all of this. But yeah, so we'll start up at the top and go right on down. Kershaw, he is coming off the IL, so major concern. He had back issues. So would not shock me if he only goes like 65 to 75 pitches, somewhere in that range. And at 10.4K, if I'm only going to be getting 65, 70 pitches, and he's on the road going up against the Mets, 10.4K is a pretty steep price tag, and I think I'm going to be putting him down on the tier list because of that. Chris Bassett, he's got one of the better strikeout rates on the slate for the whole season. However, looking at his past 6 games, 1 strikeout, 2 strikeouts, four, four, five. It has been pretty rough. And now he's going up against the Dodgers. And if you're not able to strike out guys as of late, and you see the Dodgers at the plate, that's a little bit concerning. So 10K for Bassett against a team that just doesn't strike out. When they get the ball in play, they're one of the best offenses or the best offense in all of baseball. Bassett is a risky play today. And then we're already down to Johnny Cueto being the best of the remaining options. So you kind of see quickly how pitching looks pretty ugly on this slate. Johnny Cueto, he's going up against KC. He's faced them twice so far this season. It's only about 2 earned runs. Pretty good. 11 strikeouts in those 2 games. So Cueto at home, he has worse home numbers so far this season. Who knows why? I don't understand it. But Johnny Cueto, I think, might be my favorite play, and I do have him ranked up at the top here today, just because of the concerns with Kershaw and how deep he's going to go into the game. Bassett, just going up against the Dodgers and just his struggles of striking guys out as of late, I put him right below. And then Gilbert, he's kind of like sandwich right there in the middle. He's a righty. He's going up against Detroit. We've been targeting righties against Detroit. I mean, I feel like the whole industry is targeting righties against Detroit pretty much the whole season essentially. But has Gilbert really instilled any confidence in what he can be able to do as of late? Nope. He's kind of going with the Bassett route in that he had this decent-ish strikeout rate for the whole season, but lately it has just disappeared. 2 strikeouts, 2 strikeouts, 2 strikeouts, four, five. There we go. And now we're seeing what he was doing kind of earlier on the season. 6, 7, 8 strikeouts. But just it hasn't been there as of late. But maybe Detroit is his way to get back on track. But we kind of sandwiched him in the middle. The remaining guys, Rodriguez, Mengden, and Espino and Waldichuk. I put Erod up at the top, going up against Seattle. He's probably got the toughest matchup. So like I don't really want to put him up at the top, but everybody else, who else are you gonna put up at the top? I don't know. But Rodriguez, he has had some better form as of late. He's only allowed 1 or fewer runs in, essentially his past 4 starts. Yeah, he started against Tampa Bay, but it was ugly. We're just gonna throw that one out the window. But yeah, he has done well as of late. Strikeouts have kind of been there a little bit. 7.1K. If you want to throw a dart out there, sure, go for it. Pitching on this slate is just ugly all around. Mengden, he was a bullpen guy when he was with Kansas City. He just got the call up back from the minors. So he is starting today. He is a starter down in AAA, so it wouldn't shock me if he is able to go 4 or 5 innings. But I don't expect him to have like a super long leash. So I'm kind of fading him there. Espino, not really too interested in. Waldichuk, he is interesting. I do have him right behind Erod. You could even put him up at the top if you really wanted to. He had some big strikeout numbers in the minors. He was in that 30% range, that elite 30% strikeout range that we strive for. So Washington, they don't strike out a whole lot as a team, but still, when they lost Juan Soto, when they lost Josh Bell, their offense took a serious hit. So if you want to take like a near min price pitching salary against a team that, the offense that's really been struggling, sure, no problems with that. Salary is not going to be really an issue here on this slate, though, so do what you wish. But yeah, pitching is pretty ugly, all things considered. Turning to the bats, the White Sox and the Mariners, I think they're your top two. You could even kind of throw Oakland in there if you really want to, going up against Espino. But we'll start off with Seattle. The Seattle guys I would be targeting Julio Rodriguez, Eugenio Suarez, and the final guy is Carlos Santana. Not only do these guys have some of the better numbers against left-handed pitching on the season, one nice thing about Santana is he's 2.3K. I feel like I mentioned him in his last video yesterday, but he's just cheap. He kind of opens things up. It is kind of unfortunate that he is in the first base spot, just because, at first base, we tend to typically like to spend up, just because there's so many studs at first base. But it is a nice way to kind of get a little bit different if you do go cheaper at that route. So I do like Seattle. Chicago White Sox, it's your usual guys. They are an all-righty lineup, except for one guy. Gavin Sheets is probably going to be in there, and Sheets is super cheap, 2.6K. Would not shock me if, against the righty pitcher, they put him in there as a lefty-righty matchup. He typically bats in the middle of the order, in that probably like 5 spot. So it wouldn't shock me to see him there, but it's your usual guys outside of him. Just every time I see him, it's just with all the injuries I forget. It's crazy. But Abreu, Jimenez, Vaughn. I mean, they're usual guys that you would be targeting for the White Sox. But Sheets, I just wanted to call him out just because he is another value play if you do need to find some more value. Oakland, they're like the third team that I kind of lumped in there into that top tier. Going up against Espino, Seth Brown, Langeliers, Kemp. Who's the other guy I had down here? Murphy. Where is he? He disappeared. Oh, he's all the way to the top. I was somehow scrolled down for some reason. Sean Murphy, you could throw him in 4.8K. Langeliers 3K. Kind of rough that they're both the catcher spot. So you gotta figure out what you want to do with that there. But not only are those the 4 guys with like the best numbers against right-handed pitching for Oakland so far this season, they're also the 1, 2, 3, 4 possibility in your lineup. In the projected lineup, they're 1, 2, 3, 4. So Oakland stack, I think that they could be a solid GPP play if you want to throw a couple of those guys in cash too, no issues. But I do think Oakland could be a way that you could get different because really, who likes to stack Oakland? Not many people, but on a 4-game slate, go crazy. Figure some things out from there. On the Washington side of things, only one guy I want to mention who's just super cheap, Lane Thomas. He's going to have that lefty-righty matchup. Probably leadoff spot, maybe leadoff spot. I don't want to say probably leadoff spot. Maybe he has been down in the lineup a couple times in the past couple weeks. So make sure you're paying attention to that Washington lineup. But if Lane Thomas is starting off, don't mind him at all. On the New York Mets side of things, going up against Kershaw, I think the Mets are one of my favorite GPP plays. Kind of have it ranked here, just because they're going up against Kershaw. Coming off the IL, who knows? Who knows? We have seen Kershaw struggle at times. He's not the Kershaw that we remember from 5-10 years ago. So maybe, this is a lineup that can get to them. Pete Alonso, Lindor, Marte, they're GPP for a reason because they are just crazy expensive, 5'6", 5'8", 5'9", other guys that I'm mentioning. Kanha, he can be in there rough. If you don't want to go Alonso, go a little bit cheaper. But yeah, Beatty, done for the season. How sad. Yeah, I do think the Mets could make for a very intriguing GPP play and probably my favorite GPP play. People are going to see Kershaw on the other side, get a little scared off, but coming off an injury, it's a 4-game slate. You got to be different. You got to go crazy a little bit. But yeah, so that kind of wraps things up for this early slate. I don't think there's really too much issues with salary. Pitching is just ugly. I mean, it can make a case against pretty much everybody on this entire slate. Actually, I think I can make a case against everybody on this entire slate in the pitching department. But yeah, so do what you want with the pitching. This is kind of how I just rank them out. Cueto, I think, is probably the top option. Going up against KC, Bassett, it's risky. Gilbert there. I might even put Waldichuk over Rodriguez, to be completely honest. Rodriguez has a very high walk rate to go along with strikeouts, so that's seriously concerning. But Waldichuk, maybe I put him above Rodriguez in that cheap tier. So that kind of wraps things up for this early slate. For the main slate, come back. We'll have notes later on in the day, probably closer to dinner time, about who we kind of like in that slate. And yeah, so that kind of wraps things up. Good luck in your contest today. Hope this helps you out, and we'll see you in the next video.